Here we are. All right, man.
All right, so we're doing Dragon Ball Z versus Dragon Ball Kai as a discussion with me and Rob. Personally, when it comes to music, the show, pretty much like the Dragon Ball experience. Me myself, I kind of think Dragon Ball Z was the better one, um, in terms of music, in terms of just like getting you into the show. Which, as me growing up, I watched Dragon Ball Z, like Rock the Dragon was what the intro theme was, which, heavy metal rock song. Well, not really heavy metal, but just like a rock song starting the show, and then just, seeing like key blasts and whatnot. That's kind of what got me into the show. Um, so I kind of decide with my childhood with Dragon Ball Z.
Little nostalgia there.
Yes.
hmm Um, it's definitely a factor for me as well. I know there's a lot of people that feel Kai is superior. Um, Typically, the argument you're gonna get with that, it revolves around the content. And I agree that there's a lot of good stuff. A lot more. The character building was a lot more um, vivid, I suppose.
Yeah.
There's you could see the growth in characters like Vegeta and Goku. Goku's reactions were not quite as corny, especially to people like Frieza. There was a hatred you were seeing
That's true.
grow. You could see a viciousness, a sharpness to his words in those situations. Um,
Well, yeah, like you're exactly right. Like when Goku first transformed in Kai, he called him like a bastard,
yeah.
and then in Z, like he was just, you shouldn't, you're not gonna get away with this. And like in Kai, he was like, hey, like MFer, you just killed my best friend. But you can see the feeling in Kai in that moment. Um,
Also, because there's another thing that Sean Simmel said. He brought up that due to his seniority with the series, he was allowed more opportunities to make more calls for Goku.
yeah,
Where initially, one of the weakest areas in terms of the writing. Again, my favorite saga is Frieza, the Z saga, not the Kai version of it. Probably the Funimation Deb, even though
yeah,
it does have its weaknesses, and those are because the reason they hired Sean in the first place was because he sounded like his predecessor a lot more than other people. So you saw a Goku that it wasn't so much of him interpreting how Goku would sound. He was interpreting how the guy before him would sound doing his interpretation of Goku. So
yeah,
there was this level of translation going on, which prevented Goku from or Sean from exercising his full potential as an
yeah.
artist in there.
Or
And
like
also,
becoming the character.
yeah, and then you also had the funniest, in my opinion, or silliest sounding was the Brian Drummond recreation of Chris Sabat. He did his best, and it worked, but I mean, Brian Drummond, the guy sounds like a tenor. Sabat sounds like a baritone. So the dude was pushing himself up there to get that scratchy Brian Drummond sound, and
Yeah.
over time, over time he grew into his own lower sounding Vegeta, which kind of works more for the Japanese since the original voice actor Vegeta had more of a lower tone than Brian. But personally, I still loved angry Brian Drummond. That dude was intimidating.
I mean, like, do you think the whole like tone change like takes away from Vegeta as a character? Like,
Um, to
is
it,
he as threatening as like in like the first, like in the Saiyan saga, and like even like the Frieza saga, when Vegeta was still kind of like bad, but was you know,
as a
um,
villain, Brian Drummond was a better villain. He was
yeah,
frightening. Um, I'm still more akin to Brian Drummond. When people argue that later Brian Drummond wasn't as good, I disagree. The problem with Brian Drummond, because the Ocean dub did finish the series. Most people haven't seen it though. In Canada, I believe, is where they got the Ocean dub finished. In that, they were using a soundtrack that what they were recycling. They were
yeah,
using the Mega Man soundtrack for Dragon Ball Z when Ocean was doing it. So this, I would say, the Funimation dub benefited tremendously from Bruce Faulkner. Now, Brian, however, was working against first off a rush schedule. They
Yeah.
they didn't have the time Funimation did. Number two, they had a score that they really didn't care much about using properly, where Funimation was creating music just for those moments.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I have to give the Kai like in terms of like when music should be placed in certain spots, like Kai kind of nailed it. Whereas in Dragon Ball Z, like it had great music, but it was kind of like misplaced in some spots. I think personally.
hmm. um with Kai, my biggest issue is, first off, the orchestral arrangements were a little cliche, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Um, it was just like so by the numbers versus Funimation, where you had a guy composing. I never heard stuff like that before,
That's
like the
true.
Vegeta theme, the
Yeah.
piano Vegeta Super Saiyan theme, Pycon theme. I mean, there's a lot of really good ones. The atmospheric Frieza music, it was so tone setting. Even the Bulma music and all that. As much as I hated the Bulma filler music, he arranged music just for that, as opposed to Toei, where they would just allow giant lengths of time of just silence,
Yeah.
and it just drove me nuts. It's just, and then after that, Funimation released the Orange Bricks versions of the series, and the only thing that got 5.1 Dolby Surround sound was the original Japanese dub, which they were making a big deal about, and it was just like, dude, there's a reason you guys replaced it in the first place. It's because Bruce did a better job. Why would you emphasize the original? I mean, you can even tell it was uninspired because Kenji Yamamoto was revealed to have stolen a lot of his work, and they had to redo a lot of the Kai stuff. So Bruce, however, is creating this beautiful score that it was so good that, if you recall correctly, the Legacy of Goku series, they didn't bother making their own music. They just emulated Bruce because they
Yeah.
knew that that was good. Like, it was a good idea to do that. There's I can hum out a few DBZ Japanese tunes. Now for Bruce, there's iconic music that resonates with you still to this day when you hear it. Like that, the Vegeta theme, when he both Vegeta themes are, they're just
Well,
they're
I mean,
iconic.
like I don't know if it's like a AMV. Like remember like the song, like the Japanese song they played when Gohan turned Super Saiyan 2. It was like the kind of I'm not saying it's kind of like a rock Japanese song. And
Yeah, I have on
then
my phone.
yeah, but it's and then like I guess in the Kai version it's different, but personally I think like the Japanese version did a little bit better. Like it was more like a I mean, like that's the thing is like when characters like transform, like when like hit like that next level, it's always something that like the music, the acting should be like much more intense. Like you feel like okay, this guy's gonna come out and save the day. Um, Personally, like I like Cell's, I really like Cell's theme, like his perfect theme. Um,
For Faulkner, or the original Toei.
the original, I
Okay.
think.
For me, for Z, my favorite is Battle Power Unlimited, which is the song that plays when Trunks does his thing against Frieza.
Yeah,
That
that's
that I liked a lot, which I believe also was stolen. So for me, every time I'm like, man, I like this song, and then it's like, this is who they took it from. Oh, come on, you know. So I'm not sure what the Cell one was, but I have seen more times than not my favorite, at least Yamamoto music, was stolen from other people,
yeah,
and what he has stolen were like key elements of what made those songs sound good.
yeah.
I mean, he took from Stradivarius for the Budokai 3 music, Budokai music in general. He did. Like he took like 2 or 3 songs from Stradivarius. It was terrible. And this is like a big power metal act.
Well, like music aside, like what else like separates these two shows? I mean, personally, like everyone says, like Z had too much wait time, too much powering up, too much filler. Which
Agree.
personally, I thought the filler kind of like made the fight so much more epic. Like hell in the Frieza saga, like when the guys are this whole like running around getting the Dragon Balls, denying Frieza immortality, and then waiting for Goku to show up. If Goku shows up, waiting for Goku to heal. Like it's like it kind of like builds up to like once Goku finally gets there, and then transforms. Like it's it
Suspense.
kind of made it worth. Yeah, it kind of made it worth it. Like
Hmm.
he sat there for like 100 some episodes, and finally Goku's transformed. And he's ready to beat up Frieza.
I I don't I don't mind the filler that much. Again, I'll admit Kai does a few things that I prefer. I think the dialogue as a storyteller is superior um, in certain aspects. Some of the acting is better because the actors were given. This is talking about the American dub. Are given more freedom to act a little more as opposed
Yeah,
to emulating other people. So those are two very big positives. But in terms of Z's positive stuff, first off, the animation. I It's like stuff I do in the studio. I mean, there's some of our best songs, the Bannerman.
yeah,
They're ones that I find my engineer telling me to take things away from songs because there's almost too much polishing going on, and you're missing the overall point.
yeah.
There's a lot of that going on with Kai. Kai, the animation is just too polished for me. It looks like they're covered in oil.
Well, yeah, like it's weird because Kai came out like what, like 5 years ago, and Z came out like in my childhood, like '90s. So
In Japan, it was late '80s.
yeah, so it's like when I'm watching it, like when I'm 6, 7 years old, and I can see like it's a little bit gritty. I mean, that's what I grew up on. But nowadays, like they're trying to, like my problem with Kai is I feel like they like try too much to like modernize it. It's
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so it's still like the same show I grew up watching, but it's different, if that makes any sense.
For
And
me, it's kind of removed a little humanity from the creating process.
yeah,
It was too computerized, too processed.
yeah, exactly. And like it seems like, I mean, there's like newer anime like Naruto and all that stuff, but you know, Dragon Ball Z is supposed to be like the father of all anime, and as an older anime, it's like pretty much like the frontier, like pretty much like Dragon Ball Z is what made anime popular in America. And so it's supposed to kind of have like that old time kind of like, feel to it, just like Akira almost.
Yeah, and even to this day, I haven't really fully seen Akira, but the coloring of
Yeah,
Akira alone is breathtaking
exactly.
compared to a lot of newer animes, which they focus on polishing things up so much, and they also don't want to take chances with colors. That's one thing I really don't like about a lot of newer stuff. They don't want to take chances with colors. Dragon Ball Z was full of flush
Yeah,
coloring. Like you had you had the oranges, the greens, the whites, all this great coloring. And with Kai, they muted a lot of that, which drove me insane. They
yeah.
muted a lot of that coloring. If you look at comparisons, let me see if I can pull one up. I just downloaded.
Well, I'm thinking like even like in the Frieza saga, just like with the dynamics or just like the background, like the coloring is just different.
Yeah, I got it right here. Let's see. Screen mirroring. I can't get the full thing, but you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Let me get that in there. You just look at the differences between their faces. Like, yes, Kai, in terms of the drawing, is better looking,
Yeah,
but I'm I
yeah.
prefer the bright coloring. I like the style of the original with or maybe it's just nostalgia talking. I don't know, but
I mean, it could be like that's what I'm like. I'm talking like me like 6, 7 years old watching this show. I'm watching like the old vintage version, well, vintage if you call it that. Like I'm watching like hard drawing lines, like kind of like rough colors. Like it doesn't have to be polished. I still got like the story. It was Dragon Ball Z. Um, and then nowadays, like it's like it almost looks kind of like computer. Like it's I really can't explain it. So I mean personally, like Kai looks good. Kai's polished, like you know, but drawing wise, like animating wise, I still have to stick with Z on this one.
yeah, it It's a little, yeah. It's just a little too Sorry, I'm just reading a post we got posted on. Um, it's just this stingy admin. I was sharing something from earlier. I just find it funny that I've never been in a group where someone deletes a post and he announces he's going to minutes before he does it, and I kind of actually go. I'm gonna take care of this real quick, but go on your point. I'm just gonna handle this real quick.
Okay, I mean it's I mean I don't know who was all listening, but I mean Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Kai, like you know, growing up like I mean imagine yourself being like 5, 6 years old and turning on your TV and hearing like Rock the Dragon come on and seeing like cartoon Goku like kicking ass like in like the first filler like the first not filler but like the first like you know and it hooked me and my brother onto the show. I mean that's what got us on the Dragon Ball Z. And then granted like there was a lot of filler in Dragon Ball Z like after after the Frieza saga we had to deal with the whole Garlic Jr. thing which was garbage. And then even after like the whole Cell thing and the whole Goku thing in Hell, but even still, like I mean, that's that was our childhood, and I mean, I think I'm leaning too much on nostalgia, but I mean, it's it's different. Like Kai, like kind of cuts out like what made me join the show.
hmm Back now. Um, yeah, I can. Now he's mentioning me everywhere. This is incredibly sad. Um, it again for me, it's just a case of I think that they were trying to. I am. Part of me doesn't see why the series exists in the first place. I like having, I guess, an abridged version.
Yeah.
But
Well, see, it's funny because like Team Four Star, like they're like Dragon Ball Z like Kai episodes when it's like cut out like 90% of the content. Like I can kind of see what they're coming from. It's like, you know, Kai kind of just like shadowing like all the filler and whatnot, and it's like a 2-minute episode about the entire story. And it's like, um, but it's weird. Like it's like the whole. I mean, I understand like the whole like people flying around staring, but it builds up intensity. I thought.
I can see that. Man, everything's happening all at once right now. Um, yeah, sorry about that. Actually, let me see if we can take a break real quick, and then begin this at one more. Like we're gonna pick it up real quick where we left off, and then we'll be right back to it. To be honest, a lot of these need a first and a second half because I believe we're approaching 30 minutes as is, and a lot of these episodes, if you have one segment of an hour, it just people have trouble following it. So if you give me 1 second, we'll be right back in this. Just stay in here and I can go into details and whatnot. But since this is being recorded, I'm gonna keep on the DL. But give me 1 second. Stay in here. I'm just gonna end the broadcast itself though.